So, welcome everyone to this behind the scenes video. So what I want to do with this one is essentially break down a few of the videos that we've released so far and kind of give you the mindset that we had when we created them. So we'll be looking at things like how we shot them, the sorts of angles that we were going for, how we edited them, and the decisions that led to the creations of these videos. So we'll start off with the first one, which is one of, I think, the most recent video that we released, which is the You Should See Me in the Crown video that Adora put together. So essentially what I'll do is I'll break down each element of it, how we shot it, and we'll go from there. So to start off with, we'll play it all the way through, and then I'll break down each section of it. So let me just...
Bide my time, wearing a warning sign. Wait till the world is mine. Visions I vandalize, cold in my kingdom size. Fell for these ocean eyes. You should see me in a crowd. I'm gonna run, there's nothing to help. Watch me make them bow, one by one by one, one by one by. You should see me in a crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make them bow, one by one by one, one by one by one. Count my cards, watch them fall. Blood on a marble wall. I like the way they scream. Tell me which one is worse, living or dying first. Sleeping inside a hearse. I don't dream. You say, come over baby, I think you're pretty. I'm okay, I'm not your baby, if you think I'm pretty. You should see me in the crowd. I'm gonna run, there's nothing to help. Watch me make them bow, one by one by one, one by one by. You should see me in a crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make them bow, one by one by one, one by.
Cool, so what I'm going to do now is start off from the beginning and we'll go through and break it down. So to give you a quick intro into the lighting we used, we were using from a Macove our main LED full RGB uplighters essentially. So we had them mounted to tri-light at the back. We basically created these three uprights like that. Let me just skip forward a bit to the next shot if I can find a good example. Okay, so here we had a couple of more. There's a better further out shot. Hold on. Just trying to find one that demonstrates it. Okay, so to light this, so we've got these 6 lights at the back, which can do any colour. They're great bits of kit. We also had a fill light that was coming from this direction, so L's front's left, and then on the opposite side we had a UV bar that gives this really nice sort of dark bluey purpley glow. We thought that worked really nicely with the effect in the background with that colour. These were all actually set to just white, but it gives off this kind of bluey hue, and I think combined with the UV bar, it made it a bit more blue, and then in the editing as well that we'll go through in a second, it gave it some more. Right, so if I'll start at the beginning, here, I filmed it 8 times, 7 times with the lights as they are in this, and then we did it once all the way through with them strobing to give the chorus effects. So let's start off going through this. So there was a version where I got Elle to stay static. I think it was the last shot that we did. We went over it again to get a few of the details, a few of the close-ups, and then some static shots. So this was taken from that. This was a really interesting shoot because I didn't really... so for example, with the next video that I'll show you, which is the large tank intro video, this one I didn't really have a picture in my head of how I wanted it to be. I just wanted to set up the general aesthetics. We looked at some choreography videos that I'll put in the link below that kind of gave me the vibe for the backlights, but then we kind of accentuated it by using the smoke and the fill lights rather than just the backlights. We've also got a smoke machine. You can't really see it. It's just down here in the bottom corner. So Elle did a fantastic job of the choreography on this. I'll go back into this. So there's only a few actual, other than the cuts, in terms of edits and overlays put into it, there's only been a few things. So there's a few of the glitch moments which are really obvious. There are also a few lens flares that I put in. So this was the first lens flare that you can see just come across. So that's an effect put in post. That's not fresh off the camera, although it blends in really nicely with this background. It looks really natural. Right. So this is the first sort of main area where the editing is really cool. So there's a few takes that we did, and I wanted to kind of over-exaggerate the chair being kicked. So the audio of the chair being kicked is the only bit of audio that survived from the camera from when we shot it. The sound quality is not great, but again, it doesn't need to be. It's just the noise of a metal chair being scripted on the floor, and that was taken straight off the camera, no shotgun microphones or anything like that, and then put in over the top of this. So in terms of the editing, so it moves to a shot there, so you can see the kick happening, and then there's this glitch overlay. I think it was a really good job of masking the cut. Yeah. So one of the things I was really keen on doing with this video is essentially having it so it looked really fluid and smooth. So for some of the some of the cuts, you'll see where your eye follows. So if your eye is going one way, you then try and cut it so that the motion continues afterwards, where even though it's zoomed in or gone to a different shot. So this is the first bit of this. So as it cuts, you can see that the bit that you're looking at, so your focal point, is kind of around here, and that's where it stays. So if I go back a little bit, you're looking around here. It all stays around the same sort of place. And here's another example of that, also slightly different, is that one of the focal points is the 1 sign with the hand. So you'll notice that there's a few cuts where that's the continuity that links it. So this is the first one. So you see it there, and it goes straight on to being... Ooh, can I get in? There you go, each side. And here's the next drop. This is probably one of my favourites. So you'll see, as I mentioned before, with the fluid motion, you'll see the downwards drop. There you go, so dropping down. And then you get the glitch, which goes the same way. So the glitch has a downward motion to it as well. And then it drops down to Elle doing the cool crown thing. So watch that. Now I'm drawing attention to it. You see it flow really nicely, just one straight. And then that follows onto this shot as well. So again, it's the motion going downwards. Again, the continuity of going from the 1 to the 1 in each shot. Here's the next the lens flares, just in this section. Hold on. There we go. Again, as you can see her movement, the camera shakes a little bit along with her. So that was kind of an intentional thing that was done whilst we were shooting. Just double checking. Yeah, so again, another one of the continuity things, the hands over the face, which then goes through to hands over face. It's the same motion. So this is something that wasn't originally going to be in the video, but works quite well. It was an improvised thing that Elle did when we were in the strobing sequence, which I just really liked. It just felt like it worked really well. It's quite dark. And this follows on to the next section as well. So see how after she's finished with her face, the hands come out like that, and you almost follow this one down that way with your eye. And then that's picked up there by this hand, which then goes back up. So it's all to do with where your eye is looking on the screen. It makes the cuts seem almost unnoticeable. It's really, really fluid how it just goes from each one.
Living or dying first, sleeping inside of her.
This is quite a fun bit. So you might not have noticed, you might have noticed for the eagle-eyed viewers amongst you, that in some of the shots, this is a bit of a continuity error on our part and something that we need to address in future videos. We got halfway through the night and then realised that in the background, which we wanted to be fairly plain, was the front door and windows here, and our caravan really brightly lit up outside. So the caravan is what we use for Mermaid Cove for festivals and events and things like that, and at the moment it's parked up outside the unit. Since we got the new tank here, it's it's taken its space, and so there's lots of shots throughout the video. There we go. So we realised halfway through the shoots that that was going on, didn't want to have to reshoot everything from scratch because it was getting late, and so we put a banner across the windows, which has worked really, really well. It's just a shame that in some of the clips it's still highly visible.
Tell me which one is worse, living or dying first, sleeping inside of her. I don't think you say, come over, baby. I think you're pretty.
So this was another one that wasn't originally going to make the shoot because just this section here wasn't originally part of the dance. That was a section that Elle did. Again, it was kind of improvised a little bit. But I thought with that section in the music and kind of when she leans forward into here and it drops into the next shot, it just worked really nicely.
I'm okay, I'm not your baby. If you think I'm pretty.
So this bit is probably one of my favourite cuts because again, it looks like she's falling through the shot. So it goes as soon as she starts to fall backwards, the glitch goes on again, and then it cuts through to the next shot, which again is a downward motion. So you'll follow this section down
You should see me in the crowd.
like that. So it's just trying to match up exactly where the. So yeah, hold on. So the focal point's, you know, moving to here.
In the crowd.
Yeah.
I know there's nothing to hide. Watch me think about one bite. You should see me in the crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me think about one bite.
So a few bits since we were filming this, it was mostly filmed with, in fact I say mostly, all of the bits you'll see on here was shot with my D800 with a 35mm lens. So hold on, let me just, there you go, so it was all shot with this. this is actually an old analog 35mm, as in not the focal length, the type of camera. It was a film camera lens. Because this is a full frame camera, it works much more like a maybe 24mm wide angle lens. Extremely wide and really nice for capturing all the action. I did try to shoot a couple of takes with the 80mm, the Samyang, this one, which is my primary cine lens at the moment. Absolutely fantastic bit of kit, but it was just a bit too zoomed in for what this was. I wanted to capture everything, and in the end those shots didn't quite fit in with the main kind of look of it, so I decided to stick with the 35mm for the entire thing. In terms of the settings, it was, I think, mostly shot at about 100 frames, or sorry, a shutter speed of 100, ISO 400. I didn't want much grain in there with it being quite dark, and then the f-stop varied depending on what sort of shot was going in, but mostly it was around the 3.6 mark. Cool, so that's pretty much everything for that video. We'll move on to the next one. This is the Murmur Cove video that was posted on our Facebook. If you've not seen it, I'll play it through now. This one was kind of much more planned in terms of... Going into full screen. It was much more planned out in terms of storyboarding. I had a very clear picture in my head of what we wanted to do with it. Well, not to start off with, but I'll come to that. So there's a really interesting kind of the first segment of it. Came around to fix a problem, so I'll play it and then we'll break down why and what the problem was. So
I'm not going anywhere, 'cause I'm here to stay, I'm here to play. Get used to it, nothing's gonna break me down. Got a little taste of it, and now I want more, and I can't ignore the feel of it. Nothing's gonna stop me now. Fire on the ground, got 'em running for cover. Better watch out, I'm about to take over. You wanna get competitive, but I stay on top. Yeah, I call the shots, get used to it. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Feeling that adrenaline, the rush in my veins, fuel to the flame. I live for it. Nothing's gonna stop me now, 'cause I got news for you. I can't lose, no, no, 'cause I am golden, and I will never back down. 'Cause I got news for you, I can't lose, no, no, 'cause I am golden, and I'm about to take over.
cool. So that's the video that I'm talking about. Let's pause that. So to start off with, there was a problem that we needed to fix. The initial ideas that we had started from kind of here. So essentially what we wanted to achieve was to have this big canvas or cover over the tank and to have it ripped back and be revealed. But the problem was, firstly, that we were struggling to get the angle for it because, you know, the tank's enormous and our building's only so small, and also with the lens as well. I think this was almost all shot on the the 80mm lens, so the focal length was fairly long. So basically what we ended up doing was shooting coming through the door and to reveal the tank from one end of it. The original idea was to reveal it from the side and have it kind of zoomed in, the cover pulled off, and then to be stepping backwards to reveal the size of the tank. But this actually worked out better for us because you don't really see the full size of the tank until almost at the end, which is kind of what I was going for. The intro bit kind of came around because of this shot. So we shot it a few times, and it wasn't light enough. So we wanted to highlight the Momo Cove jacket the same as this one. And in the end, like with videos like this, I kind of want it to tell a story, and everything needs to kind of make sense. And so it didn't really work having a light on her back when there wasn't any reason for that light to be there. And then in other shots, you can see that there's no light from that angle. And so what we decided to do is to use the car, and then the intro sequence kind of came from that to explain why the car's there. So I'll come back to the start. So from this section, essentially I was sat on the back seat of the car filming over the top of Elle's shoulder. It worked out really nicely. I didn't think this footage was going to be usable in the end because it was really, really shaky when I was filming it. But in the end, it worked out quite nicely. It's got quite that almost cinematic style to it. The same with this one. We drove around the estate near where our unit is a few times, just getting kind of road footage going in and out of focus. Again, a bit of warp stabilizer. I'll drop onto Premiere Pro in a minute and show you how that was done. But I wanted to kind of keep some of the shape, to keep the realism. Like a lot of time in films that you'll see, where you've got close-ups of people driving or close-ups of hands, dashboards. It has this kind of shape to it that I wanted to keep. So this bit was really fun. So again, I wanted it coming round into focus. So we had the car parked basically where it was going to be. I had the camera set up, and I set the focal length there. I sorted the focus then, and then got her to drive around. So she essentially drives around into focus. It also gives us this lovely lens flare across here. That's not edited at all. That's straight off the camera, and it's given us some really nice bokeh effects around. So I don't know why I keep pointing. You can't see where I'm pointing at the screen. Some lovely bokeh effects around there. Again, this lens is absolutely fantastic for that. And now I want more, and I can't ignore the feel of it. Again, this is such a cliched shot, but we just wanted to put it in. Again, we set up the focus point. Annoyingly, she didn't quite step into exactly where she did on the trial run, so it changed slightly. So you can see that there, she's not quite in the focal plane. So you can see I'm going to stop pointing at the screen now. I'm going to show you with the mouse. You can see the focal plane just along here, where everything's in focus, and she's not quite. Again, it looked alright for the final shot. I didn't need to go and reshoot that. You can't quite tell when you're just watching it normally, but it's just an annoying little thing that happened. So this bit required some editing, and once you've spotted it, you won't be able to unspot it. There was a hole in the leggings just there, which was really, really noticeable. So essentially, what I did is I took a screenshot of this frame. And I'm sure there are much better ways of editing this, I'm sure. But I'm not particularly well skilled in... Hold on, let me just get rid of iTunes. I'm not particularly skilled in Premiere Pro yet. Again, it's all a learning curve. So what I did is took a screenshot of this in Photoshop. I then essentially deleted out the background, and then used the eraser tool to get a really soft just patch of legging. That is just this patch here. So essentially then I was able to just drop that over the top of this shot, but you'll be able to see as she moves, that patch stays still. So it's not particularly noticeable unless you're looking for it. So now that you know that it's there, I'll play this shot again. So it's barely noticeable. There is already also a few sections of this bit that didn't make it into the final cut. So we wanted to do a shot that was going to sit between here. So basically, you can't see it very well, but this is the gate onto our site. and we wanted to do a shot of Elle coming up and unlocking the gate, a close up on the hands on the lock, and then the car driving through, which would then link on to this shot. But unfortunately, I wanted everything to kick in and the tank to be revealed as the chorus dropped, and we just didn't have enough time to fit all those shots in. Cool, so basically this is probably my favourite cut that I've done so far. So essentially what I wanted to do was make sure that as the hand came up onto the black, onto the cloth, this is actually the side of a gazebo, grip it and then make sure that it just goes fully onto the black. There is an error here that I'll show you in the editing, where the layers are a bit skew, which means that for, I think it's a single frame, that was just on a second ago, rather than blacks being kind of this bluey colour, it goes onto actual black. Hold on, let's see if I can find it. There you go. Yeah, it shouldn't be like that. So again, it's one of those things that we, I'll learn as we go along. So basically, this is a wipe cut. The next one, vertical wipe cut, and I basically managed to tweak the speed of it so it wipes at the same kind of speed that her arm goes back, which makes it look like the cover's coming off and it's essentially showing what's going on in the next shot. Let me just get rid of that. So it looks like the cover's being ripped off at the same speed, and then the shot behind is what would have been behind. Like that. So this tank is really, really trippy with the way that it films. It almost is like a giant prism. We've got reflections at the top, each side, bottom, and from certain angles, it just acts like a prism. You get loads of reflections all over the place. You want a good competitor, but I stay on top. I call the shots, get used to it. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Feeling that adrenaline. So again, we had to do this in a few takes. So this section, I essentially got Elle to move in front of me, I focused it, and then got her to go back and go across again. And this is all handheld as well. Every single bit of this video is without a tripod, except for one section, which is... I clicked right into the right shot. Except for this, which is on a beanbag. We couldn't get the tripod low enough to sort out. And essentially I just kind of moved the camera a little bit. The problem is, when you're shooting a video like this, you kind of need to choose either you shoot it all on a tripod, or you shoot none of it on a tripod. It doesn't really work very nicely if you keep clipping between videos that are shot handheld and have kind of got that natural movement, that natural motion of it, to just a pure static camera. So for a lot of these, you'll notice like a little bit of wobble. I need to get a new gimbal that's big enough to take this on, because all my gimbals at the moment are only big enough for my phone or a GoPro. But it's just something that is interesting. So, yeah, that's where it was. Okay, so this is an interesting bit. So essentially, the song has been cut as well. Originally, the song was, I think, another minute long. The song was chosen even before we started shooting, or before we even started storyboarding what we wanted to do with the video. I think we were just browsing YouTube for songs that would work well with the TankGirls stuff. But in the end, we ended up stumbling over this and thought, you know what, that'd be really good to use to launch this tank with. And so it was sort of a bit too long, but we wanted to include all of the songs and all the lyrics, all the lyrics and all the choruses within it. And so we ended up cutting out a kind of an instrumental section in the middle. The cut is actually, if if I will find it, it's here. So this section is actually the second chorus. So there's the first bit, and then it goes into the instrumental. That's all been cut out, and then it goes straight into this. And I'll skip back onto here. So essentially, this cut is the main reveal of the full size of the tank. And because I couldn't find a good balance, the only two lenses I've currently got for this are both prime, so I couldn't quite find the angle that I wanted. And the other problem with this is that it's not good for motion. I was having to shoot on a very, very wide aperture, which was basically meaning that as soon as I moved, everything would go out of focus. So it was extremely difficult. I couldn't kind of just, track along the side of the tank like I wanted to, and then the only gimbals that I had were for my phone. So this whole last section was actually shot off my iPhone 10. I've got an app on it, which is Pro Camera, which essentially enables you to access settings and tweak the camera a little bit. And that was actually vital for shooting this. Normally, again, I'll show you one of the problems that you get with phone cameras is that they like to adapt. So hold on, let me just... Okay, so this is one of the first kind of promo videos that we shot. And this was shot entirely on my phone with a gimbal. There was a really hilarious moment this day where the gimbal broke and I had to find another one on Facebook Marketplace and drive down the road and buy like another 200 quid gimbal. Drove back and the other one miraculously started working. But now I've got a couple of gimbals. But anyway, so this was entirely shot on iPhone. But there's a section in here which I'll show you. So here, hold on. Right, so do you see that bit there? So as she moves around, the camera starts to pick up the light from the fire sword and readjusts the settings, and so you get this sudden flash of light. So essentially that was what I was desperately trying to avoid. Let me just go back to... So that was what I was desperately trying to avoid with this, is that I had all of the lights on kind of the follow music settings. So all the lights were flashing underneath, and the brightest light is when it just goes to pure white, because that means all of the LEDs are on. So for example, red or blue were, in fact, or green, yeah. Red, blue or green rule a third brightness, with white being all of those together. So what I was trying to avoid was having anything change and the settings change and the camera readjust itself, which is why if you're using the phone you have to use that app. Otherwise it will try and adjust for the change in light settings and you'll get the brightness going all over the place. So essentially this is now shot off my phone. So I think this is probably my favourite shot of the whole video, of just tracking alongside, which shows how big this tank actually is. That just goes on and on. And then the final shot, again this is a bit of an annoying one, this is going back to the other lens, and I couldn't quite get the focal point of where I wanted it to be in focus, so I don't think any of the shot is in focus, but it looks quite nice just having a swim towards the camera. Cool, so what I'm going to do now is drop into Premiere Pro and quickly show you how I've edited some of these. So here you go. So this is all fairly simple. Originally I had a lot more video channels. I had 7 video channels all the way down. So what I do is essentially layer each one in, and then it was a bit of a niggly job to drag and just adjust the video so that it matched the audio track. And then essentially as I was editing it, I would have all of them going and then just drop down through each one to see for each. In fact, you can actually see the markers, hold on. So see these markers at the top? Those were basically put in where I wanted or thought that cuts would look good. And so I'd do a section up to one of the cuts, and then I'd cut it, and then I'd go through each video track that I had of each take and work out which one looked the best or which one worked with the previous bit of video. And now essentially as I did each section, I dragged it up onto here, and then when I was done I just deleted out the remaining video channels that I didn't need. So the editing sections you can see here, so this is the lens flare. So if I play it, there you go. Essentially that's just marked as blend mode with screen. If I put it to normal, is it going to work? Sorry, lagging a little bit. Right, let's put the opacity up to 100 so you can see the original track. So yeah, this is essentially the lens flare track that I was working with. Let's just undo that a couple of times. Cool. So, and then this is the glitch track. So again, and then you can see the chair being kicked around. I don't do too many fancy cuts or effects on the cuts. It's just standard. The only ones that you'll see are dip to black, which I tend to put in at the start, so I'll fade in or cross dissolve here, which basically means that the writing can hang in the air, which looks quite cool. Yeah, so this is the other point. I'm terrible, absolutely terrible for this. This isn't something that anyone should be doing. There are lots of industry people that tell you not to do this, but I'm a cheat. So I really like the 6:9 cinematic video scale. So having videos very wide and very cinematic. It takes a lot of adjusting and adapting to make videos go to that size, and sometimes it warps it a little bit. If you're shooting properly, I'd recommend always setting it up properly to start off with. But I essentially just created these bars in Photoshop and then just dropped them in. So if I remove that, you get to the original photo. There we go. So even if I take that off. It just gives it that cinematic look. Right, here we go. This is the actual version of it. So there's a lot more going on here. So again, I've got the same 6:9 look on it. What's the start? I think that's just black, which fades in. There's a few adjustment layers in here, so I use adjustment layers essentially like filters for colour grading. There's 3 different colour grades in this. I've got a really good pack, which I'll link in the comments below for all of the tones and colour grades that I use, all the LUTs. So essentially this is the first one. It then goes on to the section between the tank being revealed and the first kind of drop to black, and then as soon as the full tank is revealed and it goes onto the mobile phone footage, that's then another colour grade. In terms of the cuts, where's that? Hold on. So let me zoom in. So you can see if I scroll across. Don't worry, I've lost it. There you go. Bum patch dots PNG. That was it. So let me just take that layer off. There you go. You can see the really obvious bum patch. So here is where there was the gap in the colour grades. what I'll do now is I'll go quickly onto a kit video which goes through all my bits and pieces. So that's for me for now, and thanks for watching. Cheers.